Welcome back, everyone. Hope you're doing well today. Today we're going to talk about a couple interesting things about Egypt. And the first one is going to be dreams. And the second one is going to be oracles. So I hope you find this as interesting as I do. I hope you enjoy this lesson. So, dreams in ancient Egypt were thought to have an effect on a person's everyday life. And that dreams could also tell you your future. There's a group of texts from ancient Egypt known as the dream books. This describes specific dreams, like types of dreams, and what they could mean. So, for instance, if someone had a dream that they were drinking warm beer, that was a sign that harm could come to them. These beliefs were developed over long periods of time where people probably just bad things happened to them after they would have a dream like that, and so it just became a thing. Who knows where it all actually came from. A dream about a harp would mean that the person would be encountered with some kind of evil. But a dream about a donkey could mean that the person dreaming this would probably get promoted. I love that. This had to do with, it was like puns, like a play on words, and that was considered to be really magical to Egyptians. So you have to think about what the words are for these things. So the word for harp, Bennett, and the word for evil was bint. So there was something about the words that made it like a pun to them. The word for donkey was 2 A's, and the word for promoted was SAA. So a lot of that could be just they're playing with their language. They say that this text is written in a Middle Kingdom style. So they think that that's possibly where it originated. So the only person they knew for sure that owned a copy of this was a scribe named, I think we've talked about this guy before. His name is something. Okay. Kenherkepshef. So he owned a copy of this, and he also owned poetry. He had quite the amazing library, they believe. Literature, of ancient Egypt, history, magical spells, and a calendar of lucky and unlucky days, because Egyptians believed that certain days on the calendar were lucky and other days were not. For example, a lucky day would be, like in history, it would be a day where like a god like took a successful journey. So that day is lucky. An unlucky day would be like on a day where two gods battled. So you could choose to do certain things on lucky or unlucky days. If you wanted something, a promotion, something specific, you would probably wait for a lucky day before you tried to achieve that. Scribes at this time did not only keep records, but they also were kind of a link between the religion and the community. So they had all this knowledge, and they kept all this knowledge, and they would use it to educate and help the community, but they would also interpret dreams. So a lot of them were thought to have some kind of dream, like information, like this book, or it was passed down word of mouth, so it's like an oral history kind of tradition. So next we're going to talk about nightmares. And Egyptians feared having nightmares. They did not like nightmares. Egyptians had spells and incantations to guard against nightmares. They would use these before falling asleep, and if they awoke from a nightmare. They also had special headrests. People believe these headrests had many uses. One of them was to guard against nightmares, and they would carve symbols and spells and sometimes like knives and stuff on the headrest to like guard from nightmares. So there's actually a papyrus that describes how you can use the wrath of Seth or Set to kind of like curse your enemies and send them nightmares. And Sending someone nightmares was thought to be able to cause a lot of upset and trauma to someone. So that was a way to like punish them or get revenge on them. There was something eventually that was known as like incubation that might be translated a little specifically, because I'm sure that the word incubation didn't exactly apply to what was going on here, but people would sleep in temples and specific or sanctuaries that were known to and were made to give people healing dreams. And especially with people with infertility problems. Because again, we talked about in another lesson how important having children was to the ancient Egyptians. There's a story that exists of a woman who cannot conceive in ancient Egypt. So this woman visits a temple, one of these specific places, because she can't have children. She then has a dream that she must take the gourds from a melon vine and crush it into a remedy. And she must take that. Oh, that's how you spell gourds. Gourds. This is a dream. She must take this and then she has to have sex with her husband. And it's said in this story that this woman conceives a baby after she goes to one of these places and does this. Oracles were thought to be consulted on certain days, like festival days. They were thought to stand in front of statues of gods, and that's kind of how they would like get started. It's all like one word. It's thought that oracles in this culture were not quite the same as oracles in other cultures. They were kind of used to like solve disputes a lot of the time between like landowners and like buyers and sellers of something. So they would kind of determine how much money someone would pay for something, and if there's like a dispute, like who was right and who was wrong. They would also be asked questions, kind of like Greek oracles. So they would get questions like, which way should I travel? Should I go north? And oracles were thought to kind of like communicate with the gods, so they could get like a straight answer. One of these people. Oracles were also thought of making like judgment calls, like solving crimes. and held the guilty accountable. So it's not completely known how the oracles made decisions, but like for instance, they found evidence that like there was a fire started and they wanted to find out who started the fire, so they would write names on papyrus and the oracle would look at them and the gods would guide them towards the right name, towards the guilty person. There's evidence that people did not necessarily take an oracle's word at 100%, that people might go to one oracle and not like the answer, and so they would go to another one. Which is interesting because if the gods were giving them answers, you would think that they would just give the same answer, but they wanted like a different answer. So the idea of oracles came about after the Middle Kingdom, or at least that's the earliest evidence we have, is like the beginning of the New Kingdom. So during this time, it seems that fear of the gods had lessened. Whereas in like the Old Kingdom, especially and part of the Middle Kingdom, people seem to take what the gods said and what priests said and scribes and pharaohs very, very seriously. Kind of like loosens up a little bit as time goes on. In the New Kingdom, that's like before the Romans came. The Romans did have like contact with them. So, this is probably because more time had gone by and people could see that, I don't want to trash anyone's like beliefs in God or gods, but, they started to see that like not everything that like the pharaoh or the oracle or the priest said would be 100% true. Like, people would predict things and they wouldn't always happen. And so people kind of started to like loosen up a little bit on like what they believed could affect their lives and what couldn't. So that's pretty interesting when it comes to things like this. So that's all I have for you today. Pretty interesting stuff. Anything that has to do with like mythology or religion, I'm down. So I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and I'll see you guys later in the next